Jim Garcia, how are you?
Fine, William. How you doing today?
Oh, we're doing all right. A little warm for this time of year, but I guess it's better than the snow and the cold in other parts of the country.
I know people up in the north or up in the northeast, with that bad weather, they wish they were down south.
All right. Well, since you're way out there in beautiful San Antonio, did you have a chance to go out to the, I believe it's the Alamo Bowl?
Yeah, in fact, where I work, over at, we have a local college here in, let's see, Nebraska's football team. They were with us for the entire week practicing.
Mm-hmm. Wow.
Got first up, close-up look at the players and everything in the team, and yeah. But nothing like the Sugar Bowl is going to be.
Oh, well, I'll tell you what, people right now as we speak are just, in southeast Louisiana, you cannot get away from LSU.
Oh, I know. In fact, their team doctor is a former Tiger, Manuel Duga. He's a team surgeon for the Cornhuskers, and he wasn't even with the team because he's got Sugar Bowl tickets, and he was in New Orleans, and his team is playing in the Alamo Bowl. So that was kind of funny.
Oh, sounds like. Of course, right now, if you've been hearing the news, Sugar Bowl tickets are so hard to find, you almost have to sell your house just to get two.
Oh, yeah. Those things must be impossible to find.
Oh, yeah, they basically are. Now, even though you're way out in beautiful San Antonio, have you had much opportunity to follow the 2003 Saints?
Oh, yeah, I watch them every day. I read the Picayune every morning, and then I try to catch whatever news I can with the sports wires and everything. So I really kept up with them again and tried to get over for the Saints alumni gathering this year, but gee, just couldn't make it. So I hope to make it next year.
Well, if it's any consolation, Joe Wendrowski still hasn't changed. So
I know Joe calls me all the time.
Wow.
Joe's a great guy, and we have some real great memories of you at our Saints alumni gatherings and the Saints Hall of Fame, and gee, I just want to thank you for what you've done over the years, and also, happy birthday, man, 35 years young. Isn't that something?
Well, it's like I told a gentleman, I think it was just the other day, that I'm just very thankful I've been able to make it this far and been able to do a lot for a lot of different folks. And, one thing I wanted to ask about, although you were only here for one season in 1967, and you stayed close to the team, you were their official travel agent, gosh, for what, going on 20 years?
20 years, that's right, 20 years. Yes, so I handled all the travel for all the scouts, for the team, for the players, for the mini camps, for the coaches. So I was up close. In fact, I spent more time at the practice facility daily than I did when I was a player because bringing plane tickets over and then visiting with all the coaches and everything.
Wow. Well, one thing I wanted to ask, I know you also got close with a lot of fans when you were had your travel agency. I guess you can kind of feel for them that, Haslett comes in 2000 and, his first year has so much success, including the team's first ever playoff win. And since then, they've had 3 basically average seasons, and it seems like they just fall short of the playoffs for one reason or another. I guess you can kind of really sympathize with what we have to go through here.
I know, it's a different era. I like Haslett. In fact, last time that I was in, I talked to him, and he has the same attitude as a lot of the coaches in the NFL today. Is that when I played, the eras of the 60s and the 70s, if a player made a mistake, you were really respectful of his playing status, but you were able to come out and tell him, hey man, you've made a mistake, we have to correct it. A lot of the players nowadays, they're all rich guys, and there's a new, they have to really, it's hard to communicate to a lot of the players nowadays. That's the point I'm trying to make.
Now, of course, you on the other hand do have playoff experience. You, I guess in a historical sense, were fortunate. You got to play, if my memory's right, in what would be the last pure NFL championship in '65 with the Browns, right?
That's right. That was played in January, I think it was January 3 of 1966. It was a 65 season game. It was played up in Green Bay against the Packers, and it was the last pure NFL championship game. Green Bay beat us, I think, 16-13 or 16-12, something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And in fact, it's on page 1 of the NFL 75th anniversary book. I just found it last week.
Wow!
Unbelievable! Last week, it's a 2-page picture of us on the field playing the Packers. Packers-Browns, the last official NFL championship game.
Wow. And and I believe one story I got from Flea Roberts was that didn't the morning that y'all had to go to the stadium that y'all were like 30 miles north and twice your bus slid off the road?
What a memory. Yeah, in fact, we woke up. It was I think the game was January 1st or January 2nd, because we woke up and there had been a blizzard, and nobody could move. I mean, nobody could drive. The roads were impassable, and we had to wait until the plows got out. We're at a Holiday Inn or something, way out, and we had to wait till the plows clear the road. We got to the game just about at kickoff time, so they had to delay the start of the game. And then we got in and got dressed up and so forth.
I want to tell all the listeners that about the first time you and I met, it was actually back in 1989, and I believe you participated in one of Kenny Trahan's Saints alumni flag football games.
That's right. Gee, 1989. That was the one there at the Dome? Is that the one?
Right. I believe it was against Dallas that year.
That's right. Yeah, Jethro Pugh was there, Harvey Martin, Dave Mander. I don't know who was quarterback for the comp, but I don't know if Roger came in for that.
No, unfortunately, Roger didn't come in. They actually had to recruit then Saints developmental quarterback, now Giants quarterback, Jason Garrett.
Oh, Jason played, okay. Because I know Archie played, and I know that Elo played. Elo Grooms, a tremendous end for the Saints, defensive end for the Saints.
And I also remember that because I brought my trading card book to try to get different autographs of the guys who showed up, and you kind of laughed because I actually had a card in there of Jim Nanowski.
Oh, Nino, number 11, Cleveland Browns, tremendous quarterback. We had fun doing that. I played nose guard against Manders because with my knees, I couldn't run like I used to, and I just enjoyed just doing that. But some of the guys, they could still run because they were still in their 20s. And but we had fun. That was fun back then, and maybe we can do something. Maybe not a flag football game, but maybe we can do some type of youth clinic or something for next year when we have the Saints alumni gathering.
Yeah, well, hopefully that'd be a pretty good idea. Do you still have a travel agency in San Antonio?
Oh no, I closed that down a couple of years ago because the travel industry changed completely, where you can't make money anymore, basically. So I closed that, and I just work over here, and I take care of my older brother who's mentally disabled, and take care of him. But I miss New Orleans, and I hope to maybe I would love to move back there one day. So who knows? You might see a lot of me this year.
Well, there's always hope. But thank you, Jim Garcia, for being part of our birthday bash today. And before we head out, is there anything you'd like to say to all our listeners in South Louisiana?
Well, I just like to tell them that they're the greatest football fans. They're the most knowledgeable football fans. Now people don't understand. You can be a good football fan, really not know about your sport and know about your teams. The people in the New Orleans region, Thibodaux, Houma, Bill Dodd, great LSU fans, great Tulane fans, and of course Saints fans, Nickel State fans. The people in South Louisiana know sports. They know sports. They can talk sports. If your team's losing, you say your team's losing. They'll agree with you. They won't pick on you. But they're just wonderful sports fans, and I really miss talking sports with them. They're the greatest, and I hope I can get back there one day soon.
Dan Thomas, how are you today?
I'm doing real well. How you doing, William?
All righty. I take it you're from the Boston area originally, correct?
Yeah, I'm originally from Boston. I've traveled quite a bit in the last 10 years or so. I spent some time in the military, and I went to school at Penn State. But I guess fate would have it that I moved down here, and my first experience wasn't actually. It was with a big storm. It wasn't Lily. It was with Isidore. But that was about a year and a half ago. Time flies when you're having fun, I guess.
That's right. Of course, you spent time at Penn State. My daddy tried to get me to serve 3 years at State Penn, but that's another story.
I hear you.
Okay, now I understand. Wasn't part of your military work serving in Desert Storm?
Actually, no. I mean, I spent some time overseas in the desert. It was actually the island country of Bahrain, but that was after the war. The war took place in the early 90s, and I wasn't there until probably 96. But still, I mean, Saddam Hussein was acting up and wouldn't let the weapons inspectors in his facility, so it certainly wasn't as intense, but it certainly got your attention and certainly got the attention of my folks. I mean, as soon as they got word that I went overseas, they weren't too thrilled, but everything turned out fine, and I'm just very proud to have served for the time I did. So
very much so. Now, how did you end up coming down to New Orleans?
Just by chance. I mean, I've been in the broadcast business TV-wise for just a few years. I started in Fort Smith, Arkansas. It's a Fort Smith, Fayetteville, Arkansas, I guess a twin station. and it's owned by the same company that owns WDSU. It's called Hearst Argyle. So I was with them for 2 years. I signed a second contract, and just a month or two in the second contract, I got contacted by the folks down here at Channel 6 WDSU, and they wanted me to come down and go for a little interview and then cover the tropical storm Isidore, and one thing led to another, and I was fortunate enough to work here, and my goodness, is this a crazy place. I mean, perfect example, Sugar Bowl Sunday. I mean, that was just wild.
Well, I tell you what, it was but it was also a rare event. While Mardi Gras, I'm sure, as you kind of know, can get a little out there.
Oh, yeah.
It's this was by far a different excitement, because to have LSU, and appropriately this is a sports show, to have LSU compete for a national championship in football for the first time in 45 years, as I told somebody, if they won, it would be like 2 Mardi Gras. And I take it, I'm sure that you being in the city, that's what part of the atmosphere must have felt like.
It was wild. I mean, see, last night I had to work, which was Sunday night. But Saturday night I was out tailgating downtown. They had a couple parties downtown at some of the bars, a couple bands, and it was, to be honest with you, I was live on Bourbon Street last Fat Tuesday, and this party on Saturday night tailgating for the LSU game was more crazy than that. It was just unbelievable, and just coming out of Penn State, I mean, I never saw a national championship, so the excitement that I now have for LSU is great. I mean, I just got to partake in a national championship myself. I mean, of course, I didn't contribute at all. I contributed nice weather. How's that? Well, actually, that wasn't even me. That was Mother Nature.
Very much so.
Take credit for that.
Well, since you were at Penn State, did you ever meet Joe Paterno?
No, I met his son, and I actually spent some time hanging out with his son at some of the local bars up there. But I mean, of course, I've been to probably, 50 Penn State games, though. I was there for 6 years for a bachelor's and a master's degree, so I certainly got my fill of Penn State football.
You know, one thing I've noticed about Channel 6 weather in the last few months, and maybe y'all have done it longer than that often during the weekday cast, especially at 5 and 6, that often you and Dan Milham will team up to do a cast, or as I call it, the Huntley-Brinkley report of weather.
Okay.
Who came up with that idea?
You know what, I'm not sure. I know that several stations within our company, and our company owns probably 20 or 25 TV stations, several stations do this already, and I did it at my last station with the chief meteorologist there. I know WSMV-TV in Boston, it's Channel 5 in Boston, also owned by Hearst Argyle, does it there as well. So it's just, I think, commenting from my standpoint, or at least the way I see it, is just a way to show the viewers that we are committed to putting as many people on the forecast problem as possible. I mean, when you have 2 meteorologists in the weather center, whether it's for a sunny day or whether it's for the biggest storm of the year, that's good. I mean, it's two sets of eyes, series of experiences combining to put the best forecast out as possible. So I think it's great. It shows just a commitment to just the area, giving them the best product possible, and I think it's a good thing.
Very much so, and of course, for a good while now, Channel 6 has also had Super Doppler 6000 to track everything as well. That must be a big help.
Yeah, I mean, of course. I mean, the big positive thing about Super Doppler 6000, we have Super Doppler 6000 is what they call a next generation radar. It can sense real-time information in terms of finding out where the rain is, the storms are, the snow. We don't get that often, but even if that were to happen, but also it can see inside the storm and detect the speeds of the precipitation or the winds. So we do use the government radar as well, but the way that product works is, as all the TV stations in the area use it, you don't get that information for probably 6 to 10 minutes after the scan of the atmosphere takes place. Now, we have our own radar. You mentioned live Super Doppler, and anything you see on the screen with live Super Doppler is real time. So the arm moves by, and you see a thunderstorm, and that's real time. And when that helps you is when there's a tornado out there. It doesn't happen often, but if it does happen, and it has happened in the past, we can see as soon as the arm moves by exactly where the tornado is real time, scan down to street level, and tell the people in that specific neighborhood to take cover. I mean, it's just a powerful tool, and it's such a great thing that we had it added to WDSU News Channel 6, within the last 5-10 years.
I was going to say, about the only thing it can't do is microwave popcorn. So.
Well, you know what? Maybe we'll find a way to do that, too. You put the popcorn close enough to it.
Starting from when you first moved down here through now, this must be a real unique culture to embrace.
Oh, no doubt at all. I mean, it's, again, I moved down here just within the last year, but I have found that the passion for football in the Deep South is unmatched. I mean, coming from a Big Ten school, yeah, we were excited, we tailgated, and it was all great. But down here, I mean, just it becomes, I guess, part of you and part of just about everybody, and everybody cares, and everybody wears the purple and gold. I mean, heck, I had the purple tie and a little purple handkerchief on the air last night. So with the level of excitement that's just unsurpassable, it's a great energy that feeds off of, everybody can feed off of and just enjoy and just enjoy this championship we earned yesterday. Not we did, but LSU did. But it's just a great thing to remember for weeks to come.
Now, this happened to me 4 times in the last month. Since you are in broadcasting, did anybody try to ask you if you had Sugar Bowl tickets?
Yeah. People who sat on the 50-yard line, and they said there was nothing like it ever. It was just sitting in front of the big screen TV in the Weather Center, you could sense the energy, and it just, what an experience if you got to go to that game. So I'll never forget.
I was going to say, it's about time somebody we liked won in the Superdome. The Saints didn't, kind of gave us some frustration this year.
Yeah, well, I mean, it was a difficult year, and next year's a new year, and we had a lot of opportunities this year where we could have won games where, fluke things caused those to turn into losses. So you can't hold your head. You just got to say, we'll get them next time. At least we have the tools that we need in most arenas in terms of our talent on the team and the coaching staff to get the job done and at least get to the playoffs next year. I think we do.
And of course, the big help with the new field turf to help prevent with injury down the road.
Right.
So a lot of positives on that. Well, Dan Thomas, it was good speaking with you, and it sounds like not only do you have the pulse on the wonderful world of weather, but it sounds like you've really adapted well to the wonderful people of New Orleans and Southeast Louisiana. And sounds like we're all pretty lucky to have you around.
Well, I'm lucky to. Yeah, I feel very fortunate to be here, and I've had nothing but warm welcomes from all the people down here. So I want to say thank you to those listening right now for that. And William, happy birthday to you, and have many, many more.
Ken Trahan, how are you?
I'm just fine, birthday boy. How are you?
Well, I'm still hanging in there. Are you surprised I made it to this many birthdays?
Well, at some stage of your life, I probably would have said yes. At this point, I'd probably say no.
Very much so. Well, I took you to sports. For you to go into broadcasting, it must have been a real love following sports all your life.
There was never a doubt about what I wanted to do when I was 4 or 5 years old. My parents had an old television set where the tube went bad, and they kept the frame of the television. It's about a 28 to 32-inch television. I used to climb inside of that television and pretend that I was on television at the time. And it was a fantasy world. I was very creative as a young person. And it's like this, William, when you stop growing when you're about 14 years old and your athletic ability is limited to begin with, it becomes pretty apparent at that point that you're not going to make it as an athlete. Therefore, if you want to pursue something along the lines of sports, it would have to be along the lines of broadcasting, and that's what I chose to pursue. And so I had a very early determination about what I wanted to do for a living, and I was very blessed to have parents that sent me to school to get educated, and I've been very fortunate to be able to have a career in this now for 26 years.
By any chance, was that a Philco TV?
It might have been. I don't recall, but no, actually, I do think it was a Zenith. That's my best recollection.
Now, I understand afterwards, I believe your college tenure was in Loyola?
Sure was. I went to Rummel High School here in Metairie, then went on to Loyola University, and spent my undergraduate years there and had a very good experience. Loyola has one of the finest communication schools in the country, and the reason I went there and made some great friendships that stand until today, in fact, and a couple of the people I was in school with remain very close friends. Matt Daniels, my closest friend, and Ro Brown, who's had great success in the New Orleans market as well, are guys that I still spend an enormous amount of time with today.
All right, and so no matter what, you're not going to give up on Ed, huh?
Not going to give up on him. He needs somebody to support him. He needs somebody to lean on. Look, if I abandoned him, he'd fall apart. Ed's a great journalist. He really does a tremendous job in this market. I think he's the preeminent television sports journalist in this town because he outworks everybody. But beyond that, for those that don't know him, he's a better person. He's got tremendous compassion, a very giving human being, good father, and I'm very proud to call him my best friend.
Even though he picked on that sweet Jim Mora. Just kidding.
Oh, boy, it happens. They're friends now. It's really kind of funny, if I can digress very briefly. When the Colts came down here to play a preseason game in 98 or 99, Ed and I were doing the play-by-play for the Saints at the time in the preseason. And we got there about 4.5 hours early, and just so we could try to get Mora to run in ahead down in the guts of the Superdome, which they did, in typical Jim Mora fashion. It's like, hey, how you doing? How'd you get in? And Ed's response was, I'm good, Coach. How are you doing? Good, Ed. How you doing? Good. And finally, I broke the ice, and Ed said, well, Coach, I just really wanted to try to get along with you and let you know that there's no hard feelings. I never did dislike you. No, we never had a problem. We always got along. We got along. Ed said, no, we didn't get along. Oh, yes, we did. No, we didn't. So they started arguing about whether they got along or not, for crying out loud. At that point, I jump in and laugh and intervene. And by the time it was over with, they were laughing and joking, although it was really funny, William, as we left. Ed then said, hey, Jim, listen, take care of yourself, man. He says, yeah, call me sometime, Ed. And Ed said, you don't mean that. He said, yes, I do. He says, no, you don't. You won't call me back. Oh, yes, I will. And they're arguing again. So that's pretty much the way their relationship was. He was a really good coach. And I think Mora has been a lot more forthcoming since he left coaching than when he was a coach. In fact, had he treated people the way he treats them now, he would have been received in more positive fashion, especially by the media.
Mm-hmm. Now, before we digress any further, there's a story you told me about your days at Loyola I have to bring up, and I don't know if you've ever said it on the air, but you told it to me at the museum, that when you were in school, didn't you go, one of your friends at Loyola was a young lady who later went on to work on All My Children?
Well, actually, Lynn, her name is Taylor Miller, and Taylor Miller had gone to school at Tulane and at Loyola, and as a result, we all claimed her to some degree. When that show was, I guess, really becoming popular in the mid to late 70s, she was a young starlet on that show, and she was just out of school, essentially. Had the opportunity to go into the Dana Center, which was the Loyola University Student Center, if you will, and they always had television in one section of that place. And for days at a time, we'd go fix our eyes to see when she'd come on for 5 minutes or so, and that was a big deal. When you're younger, you're very impressionable. But she was a daughter of a very prominent New Orleans woman who was very much wanting to see her daughter become a celebrity, which she did. A very pretty, very nice person, and obviously at that time it was a big deal to know somebody like that.
And of course, for those of you who may remember, she played the role of Nina in All My Children. Nina Cortland, thank you, who later married Dr. Cliff Warner.
Dr. Cliff, there you go. That's good.
Don't ask me why I remember. It just clicks into my head.
Yeah,
but
you having watched that at that time, I can honestly say I haven't watched it for a long time since, but I really did. I can tell you all the characters, the storylines. Of course, they stay the same for about 3 years anyway.
That's very true. Now, let's fast forward a lot to so much of sports and what time we have. And last night, listening to your Saturday morning show, the Sunday night Sugar Bowl contest, I tell you what, that must have been more electric than you could have imagined.
Well, it was one of those things that you like to see happen once in your lifetime. I'd like to think it would happen again, but to have everything fall into place like this was divinely inspired. To have LSU, in a year where the Nokia Sugar Bowl is the BCS National Championship game, become a real contender and ultimately, on essentially the final ballot, get in because Boise State, at about 2 in the morning, our time, beat Hawaii. LSU is into the National Championship game. Just to get there was remarkable, considering the circumstances. But then to go out and to win the thing was something that will be cherished for a long time to come. Now, throughout my lifetime, I'm not sure that you'll experience something that special unless, of course, the Saints were to somehow win a Super Bowl, which is, I suppose, not impossible. But, again, when you look at LSU and the proud tradition they've had, they sunk to a low level, obviously, in the latter years of Mike Archer and then subsequently under Curly Hallman. Jerry DiNardo had a couple of good years, but then they also digressed there and went backwards. And to see what Nick Saban's done has been just a whole bunch of fun. And obviously, it's a source of great pride for this entire state. I don't care what your affiliation is or your allegiance, if you are a Nicholls State fan, a University of New Orleans fan, a Tulane fan, a Louisiana Tech fan, a ULM fan, a ULL fan, McNeese State, Northwestern State, whatever the case may be. Louisiana gets a lot of bad publicity, William. We're 49th and 50th in a lot of different categories, and we always seem to get poked negatively at by the national media, if you will. And when you have a source of pride like this where you're number one in something, it's very clearly something to draw upon. They carry the name of Louisiana State University, so it's a flagship university. And as I mentioned, regardless of what your allegiance is, it's a source of pride and a very, very, very special occasion.
to me, it sounded like, it's just my opinion looking in from the outside, when you did Saints preseason radio, it sounded like you had a lot of fun, I believe, when it was you, Ed, and Vince Gibson all in the booth together.
Yeah, we really did. I think it's important that you like the people that you work with, and I can coexist in a working relationship with virtually anyone. You don't have to love the people. In some cases, you don't necessarily have to like them to work with them. But when you truly do like people and you have the opportunity to work with them, it's a real special situation. And that's what that one was. When the opportunity was presented to me, Johnny Andrews, who was the general manager at the time of WWL Radio where I was working, had wanted to eventually, gradually, siphon off a broadcast team of his own so that he had something in reserve, providing negotiations didn't go well down the road with Jim Henderson, who's done a wonderful job and continues to do a great job there, and Archie Manning, who's a very close friend and does shows with us today. And so he created this entity and split off from what they were doing at the time, which was simulcasting with Channel 4. To do so, he said, look, to establish some credibility, we'd like to have somebody in there along with you and Ed that has been in the business and has the ability to translate X's and O's. And Vince Gibson was a very close friend of Jim Mora's, so they shared a lot of time and information, which was beneficial. And then, of course, in addition to that, Vince and I were good friends, and Vince and Ed got along very well. So it was a fun relationship.
The New Orleans Voodoo will be starting arena football in February of 2004. That, in a sense, I consider you a pioneer in arena broadcasting, because you worked with their radio crew both years. The Night was in town in 91, 92.
Yes, I did, and I found it to be a very entertaining product. In fact, when I first got into it, the first year when Ed and I did it, we were very skeptical. We didn't know what we were getting into. We looked at this and we said, we're not really sure what this is all about. We were sitting in Albany, New York, getting ready to do the first broadcast of the New Orleans Night. And right before the game started, I looked at Ed and he looked at me, and I just said the words that he was thinking. I said, what are we doing here? He just kind of looked at me and shrugged and said, I don't know. Well, you know what? It wasn't more than 5 or 10 minutes into the game that we went to a break and we took the headsets off and said, you know what? This is pretty fun. And that's exactly what the product's all about. It's football, but if you're looking for pure football, you'll probably be disappointed. It is a combination of football and entertainment, and they very clearly go after a younger audience to try to entertain, and the music and the ambiance and the atmosphere are clearly geared toward younger people. But in the final analysis, you've still got to block, tackle, throw, and catch, and it's very fun. There are a lot of opportunities to score, and I think people like that.
No, you and I have known each other now for a little over 15 years. It was really because of the Saints Hall of Fame opening up that you and I got the first meet, and you explained to me how it all came about. And I can't thank you enough here before all of our lovely radio audience, what you've meant to me, along with you've meant to a lot of people who've either been to the Hall of Fame or listened to you on radio, and you really provide a good service for all of us.
Well, that's very kind of you to say, and more than anything else, I think what we strive to do is to do the best we can, to be the best we can, and at the same time, try to respect others, because ultimately, at the end of the day, you want to be respected, and it's the oldest axiom in life, whether you're thinking from a secular point of view or a non-secular point of view. If you'd like to be treated well, then treat others well. Do unto others as they would do unto you. And when they don't treat you well, you still try to kill them with kindness and treat them kind, because, look, the alternative just isn't very positive. It isn't very palatable, and it's not something that's going to produce anything. You don't fight fire with fire. When you do that, you start a wildfire, if you will. So what I've tried to do, and I have not always succeeded, is to treat people with a tremendous degree of respect. Usually it comes back in reciprocal fashion, but even if it doesn't, so what? At the end of the day, you feel pretty good about yourself in the sense that, hey, I handled myself in the right way, and that's all I've tried to do with my career. Whether people enjoy the things that I've done or not, hey, look, you hope they do, but if they don't, I'd rather somebody say he's a decent, genuine person than, oh, I love the way he broadcasts. And where you're concerned, you've been a blessing too. You're a friend, and care about you very much, and very proud of what you're accomplishing, and just keep on plugging, man. 35 more would be wonderful.
Very much so. And of course, if anybody maybe tuned away for KTIB for a little while, if they can't get you on WGSO, there's always bizneworleans.com. That's B-I-Z, neworleans.com. Coach Jack Phillips, how are you?
I'm doing great. How are you, William? And congratulations on another day. Another birthday.
Oh, thank you. It's good to be around this long. You know, when I talked to you earlier, you seemed a little bit surprised that I was going to turn 35.
Well, I wasn't surprised. I was just happy for you. You know, we're about the same age, and I really think that I'm a pretty young guy, so I don't want to hear any old jokes, you know.
Okay.
Stop in your tracks.
All right. Well, anyway, we, you know, you've been in Houma for a little while, and of course, I first knew you back when I followed Buford Jordan when he was head coach of the Bayou Beasts of the IPFL, of course, the forerunner to you guys. And I tell you what, your love for football must be going back to when you were a kid, correct?
Absolutely. I played 5 sports coming up since I was about 7 or 8 years old. In New Orleans, we have a big-time recreation thing, and a lot of the kids are usually involved, and that was one of the things that just kind of kept me out of trouble and kept me focused on what I was doing, and wound up giving me scholarships in a couple of sports. So it was just a way, and we talk about it all the time, where sports is just an avenue for people to become successful, and you can learn a lot of different things from sports, because it's one of the things when you're playing sports that's going to shape your character.
Very much so. Now, I like to tell the people a story about how you and I first met in person. What was when you came to Houma to take the head coaching job in 2002, I'd gone to the offices one day, and I wound up meeting you, and Coach Franklin Thomas was with you. And I think you and I must have went off for 20, 25 minutes just talking about my memories from the Bayou Beast.
And William, I wanted to say this. We could do that because it was such a great year for us, you know. With a lot of character showed itself, you know, to think about the people that we were dealing with, Chris Carrier, Jeff Majors, our coaching staff, Buford Jordan, of course, and then, of course, success stories like Michael Lewis and Van Camp, I think his name is, the kicker that also left us to start playing Arena 1, and then, of course, he had a couple shots at the NFL. So the idea is that out of that, you know, you don't usually have 2 guys that are successful out of this thing, you know. So, you know, we had some vivid memories about some of the things that we went through. And, of course, every time you and I talk, we can just go on and on.
Very much so, and one heck of a season back in 1998. And then later, when I thought, you know, I think you're probably even more surprised with this, I was able to dig out all my old footage from Channel 2 and Channel 9, including the entire championship game that year y'all played against Madison with one of the most incredible finishes any football game could have.
Any football game, and it's amazing how that thing ended, losing that snap, the ball really around on the ground, Doug Coleman picks it up and finds a guy in the end zone, a storybook ending to a great football season for this level, or for any level, winning 20 games one way or the other, 20-1, it was so awesome.
And even the crazier part is you all ran out on the field for the touchdown, got an 8-yard penalty on the extra point that Matt Heuerkamp wound up making anyway to make it 42-41. Then after a few minutes they let the crowd on the field and y'all threw water on Buford, and that was just an incredible night.
It was an incredible night, but you know, when you go through that type of situation where guys are winning no matter what, you create a familyship almost, and we had that type of, you know, I can call Michael Lewis today, and he answers my phone calls, and he does things for the kids. He comes out to the Houma area, and you know, guys like that never forget where they came from. So whenever I see Mike on TV or Mike doing his thing, it really makes me understand how important what we were doing was.
Very much so. And to fast forward to now, what I think is even neater is on occasion Michael Lewis would be at some of the Buck games, and I felt bad for the guy because sometimes he'd try to sit in the suite and all the crowd wouldn't leave him alone, and he wouldn't hesitate not to sign anybody's autograph.
He loves it, William, and that's the type of personality and character that you build when you're in these type of leagues. If you stay here long enough, 2 or 3 years, you'll develop humility about yourself, understanding where you're coming from and where you're trying to get to. And when guys like Michael Lewis make it, they never, ever forget.
All right, and of course now let's focus on you a little bit. As we speak to you, the Bucks are going into their 3rd season, and I believe the regular season is going to start in mid-March on January the 17th. I believe you have another tryout camp coming at Tulane, so you got a lot of stuff coming together right now.
Yeah, a lot of stuff coming together. I think we're going to replace half the team, so there's a huge learning curve in front of us. So we got a lot of hard work to do, but what's more exciting is that we got a lot of new faces, a lot of hungry guys, and on this level, you're always looking for guys that's hungry. So, yeah, we're really busy, but as always, it's really exciting. And I'm kind of a diehard like you, William. I mean, I like what I do. I love sports. I love being involved with it. I call some games on the radio during the high school season, so I'm always involved in this community.
The only problem I'm having is trying to get that girl Vanessa to go out with me. So.
Hey, the girl Vanessa, yeah, but 1 year older, I think you bring the wisdom with you, the knowledge, the experience, and I'm sure that'll be enough to blow off her feet, William.
Yeah, we shall see. But Coach, we appreciate you coming on our little special birthday on the air birthday party, and I know you're a pretty busy guy trying to put this team together with the other nice folks with the Bayou Bucks, and we can't say enough for taking time out.
Well, I really appreciate you having me, and I just want to let everybody know out there, a lot of people that may not know you. I can tell you this, if it wasn't for guys like yourself, William, where would the NIFL be and the other minor leagues that's around? Because there's people like you that understand that, these guys had to come from, and they may be going somewhere. And the idea is that no matter what level they're on, you guys, people like yourself, still give them love, and that's one of the reasons why they go out and play hard every weekend.
Garland Jean-Batiste, how are you?
Good, fine. I'm doing well, Mr. Taylor. How are you?
All righty, you can call me William. So tell me, how are things going for you in Southwest Louisiana?
Going well. Living and working down here in Lafayette, Louisiana, having a ball. I work for the government and just kind of enjoying life, enjoying the victory on this past weekend by the Tigers. It's been a long time coming.
Very much so. When I stayed up to watch Sunday night, I think I ended up staying up till 2 in the morning. Pretty special moment for anybody who was once associated with LSU, of course, as you were, I guess, in the 1980s, that, been 45 years since LSU's won a national championship in football. And I tell you what, I take it Louisiana, at least for the next few weeks, is going to probably be the happiest place in the world.
Yeah, for the next few weeks, to say the least, for the next few months, or until next football season. It's been a long time coming. We've been waiting for Louisiana's been looking for a champion for a long time. The Saints have kind of faltered over the past couple of years, and down here in Lafayette we've got the Ice Gators and the U of L, but we've been waiting for a championship of some sort for a long time here in Louisiana, and we thank God that Nick Saban's been able to lead that team to victory.
Met back in November with the Saints Hall of Fame weekend they had. I'm sure you must have had a lot of fun with that.
Yeah, that was great. I think it's a really good deal put together by the New Orleans Saints down there, the Hall of Fame weekend. It's a really good deal. It gives us a chance to old friends and to kind of catch up and reunite. I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's just a great weekend, and fortunately the Saints came up with a victory that weekend.
I think that was also the first game they put the new turf down in the dome, right?
Yes, it certainly was the first game with the new turf, and as you saw, players were kind of slipping around a little bit, but as the game went on, they were able to adjust. But we were able to get down on the football field, and that's a pretty good field. That's a pretty good surface.
Mm-hmm. And of course, your career at the Saints, though it wasn't terribly long, mainly noted in the all 3 strike games of '87.
Yeah, that was in 1987. I played in the 3 strikes game in '87, and went back into camp in '88. And of course, I got cut, unfortunately. And just kind of never went back, and kind of lost an interest for football, and got into my career here.
Oh, very much so. Now, also, what a lot of local folks would know was that you're pretty close with Nicholls State's own head coach, Darrell Day.
Yeah, Coach Day, we've maintained a close friendship over the years. We were roommates for about 3 years back at LSU, and we've actually maintained a really, really close friendship. He's probably my best friend. And we probably talk every day, or sometimes 2 or 3 times a day. He's done a really good job with the Nicholls State program down there. We're really proud of him, and he's got a good group of kids in there. And of course, he's teaching the kids not only football, but he's teaching them about life and something they can take with them far after football's over with.
Very much so, and of course he's probably the best coach in Nicholls State history when it comes to the academic side of football. Each year the GPA of the team has gradually gone up, much to his credit, and he had another exciting season this year, just fell 1 game short of getting into the 1AA playoffs, had an unfortunate loss, of course, in the regular season finale against McNeese. But you got to give the man a lot of credit, like a lot of people do, is that he really sticks to his work, loves those kids a whole lot, and hopefully the future, at least in the win-loss column, will hopefully be much better for him.
Yeah, Coach Day is a man of strong convictions, and when he believes in something, he believes in it wholeheartedly. And he believes in his kids, he believes in the kids he recruits, he believes in the program, he believes in his coaches. and he's done an exceptional job down there at Nicholls State. I say again, I'm truly proud of him, and I've enjoyed. I go down and make as many games as I can, including the road games. It's really exciting watching him coach on the sideline.
Thanks again for taking time out here to be part of the celebration.
Certainly. Well, thank you for having me, William.
Jim Inkster, how are you today?
Good to be with you, William. Always a pleasure. Every time I talk with you, I'm doing fine. So nice to visit with you. It's been too long.
Very much so, and of course a lot of our good listeners in the Thibodaux area miss you as well, though we do appreciate the job that Don Grady does on the air. I take it, if my memory's right, you're actually originally from Little Rock?
Originally from New Orleans, but I spent 10 years of my youth in Little Rock and came to LSU on the day that Elvis died, August 16, 1977. And coincidentally, William Taylor, you were born on Elvis's, 34th birthday, January 8th, 1969, but 4 days before the New York Jets won Super Bowl III.
You must have been pretty excited Sunday night with that national championship victory.
Yeah, championships don't come too often in football at LSU, about every 45 years. Actually, when you look back through the years, they won the championship in 1908 when they went 10-0, although they were not the AP and UPI polls at that time. But so they went 1908, 1958, and now 2003. So they're cutting it a little bit. It went from 50 to 45. I guess the next one will be in 2043, William, when you will be celebrating your 75th birthday.
Well, let's hope I make it that far.
I'm sure you will. But you're a good man. You've got a lot of talent. One of the most diverse people I know, between your passion for sports and weather and just life in general. And I think most people know that you're a working man during the day and a broadcaster at night. You're ubiquitous and talented, and I'm glad you're a friend of mine, and certainly I was pleased to have you contribute as much as you did through the years on Louisiana Live.
You know, also something else we'd like to talk about, because one of the things I would mention on your show, and we played a couple of sound bites, I believe, on what would be the last show you and I did together on Louisiana Live, was your interest in wrestling. Did you always like pro wrestling as a kid?
Yeah, I used to go to Robinson Auditorium in Little Rock every Tuesday night when I was a kid, and see Danny Hodge and Jack Briscoe and Skandar Akbar, Ernie Ladd, all the familiar names. For several years I did that. It was kind of a ritual. And one night, William Taylor, I went, and the referee for the evening was one Joe Louis.
Wow.
Talk about a change in career. Here's a guy who was heavyweight champion for 13 years, had 25 title defenses successfully, and he in the late 60s, that would have been the very late 60s, he was a referee at a wrestling match in Little Rock, Arkansas.
Wow, pretty incredible.
Yeah.
When you think about it. And also one gentleman I like to talk about who we met, and people think I joke when I mention his name, but as a kid I do have very fond memories of him as a broadcaster, because to me he was perfect for the 60s, 70s, and 80s when it came to wrestling announcers, and that's Boyd Pierce.
Yeah. He was a fixture and kind of a fellow who attained legendary status in this region of the country. For those who followed the king of sports, he was something else.
Was how we first got connected was actually back in 1999, which I think was around the beginning of the second year of Louisiana Live, and I had sent an email to you about some of the different things I had done in broadcasting, and when you put me on for the first time, it was the Friday before the season opening, the season opener in 1999, and Ricky Williams' debut at home against Carolina, and you had me go on to talk about some of those crazy stories from the early years of the Saints, including when they hired the astronaut Dick Gordon, and when they hired Burt Rose as the GM in '67, and because I've noticed from listening to you on your show, I know besides loving current sports, you also seem to really be a walking almanac when it comes to history of sports.
Well, I think part of that has to do with growing up with it. Probably know more about 1969 than I do 1999, William, but the Saints, of course, have been one of the most colorful franchises. I don't think anyone can deny that, even though they haven't been one of the most successful. It's hard to believe now that Tom Benson has owned the team longer than John Meekin did.
Yeah, that's very true. Tom Benson bought the team in '85, so 2004 will be his 20th year of ownership. I think it was about 18 years for John Meekum. So it goes to show you how time's really flown. This is going to sound like a silly question, but is there any secret or trick that you use to memorize all these numbers of so many great players and statistics?
Well, I remember back in 1973 when the New York Knicks beat the Lakers for the NBA title. Jerry Lucas was the Knicks center, and he had memorized the New York phone directory. So I don't know that absorbing information is that remarkable when you consider what he's done. I don't have a photographic memory. Obviously, he does. But I think a lot of it has to do with just being interested in it. And when you're a kid, you're so fascinated with everything around you that a lot of that soaks in. And I think that's one of the reasons why I can retrieve things that happened in the 60s and 70s when I was a little kid. And your mind's not cluttered with all the everyday things that go along with being an adult. So makes it a little easier, but I don't think that I have any more remarkable capacity to absorb information and retrieve it than anybody else. And if that were the case, I would have been a 4.0 rather than a 3.0 student at LSU.
I think it's real interesting how the listening audience really started to get to know just the callers, not just yourself. It really, the 3 hours you did every day really was an interesting blend of news and callers.
Well, thank you. It was an honor to be on the air and certainly to be on KTIB, great station, one of our inaugural stations when we started June 22nd, 1998. Pete Maravich's birthday, by the way.
Mm-hmm.
KTIB was with us right up until the end and continues to carry the show today. So, Oldie 640 is a spectacular station, and I always enjoy being on KTIB, and certainly anytime I can visit with you, William Taylor, on or off the air, it's a good day for me.
Well, I appreciate that very much. And before we head on out, I understand you'll be getting back on the airwaves as well at WRKF 89.3 FM, correct?
Yeah, that's the plan. Come March to begin doing a program somewhat similar to what we were doing on Louisiana Live, and there in the mornings at 9 o'clock. And we'll start in March and see how it goes. But I have some great memories from the 5 years and 4 months that I did Louisiana Live, and whatever success that comes my way from here on will be in direct relation to the experience I had as the host of that program.
Very much so, and it'd only be appropriate as well. Well, Jim, I tell you what, we appreciate you stopping by on this birthday bash, and is there anything else you'd like to say before we close out?
Happy 35th birthday to you, William Taylor.
Troy Johnson, how are you today?
Will, how's it going, man?
We just want to know, are you still giving Jack Phillips a hard time?
Hey, man, why did Jack Phillips say I was giving him a hard time? He's a good friend, and, Jack's my buddy, so if you're listening, Jack, I'm no longer giving you a hard time, partner.
For people that don't know, Troy called Jack when he was on HTV in an appearance about the turnover in management with the Bayou Bucks. And so why Jack thinks you're giving him a hard time, I don't know.
It was a valid question, William. It was a valid question. Who's going to be the next manager for the Bayou Bucks? A valid question.
Very much so. But anyway, so let's talk about a lot of stuff going on. You must have stayed up a good bit to see that LSU championship game, huh?
Yeah, that was a great game, man. That was a lot of excitement. The defense really played well. I was really pumped up because I never saw a defense with that type of team speed in a long time. And the team speed that they had at defensive back position, the cornerback position, linebackers, those guys really ran to the football, and they just disrupted anything Oklahoma tried to do. So they played well.
This year, 2003, didn't pan out near to expectations at 8-8. Seemed to be discipline problems at times. Grady Jackson got cut because of not staying overnight at the hotel the night before a game.
Right.
You had Dale Carter that got put on IR, then later waived for wanting to play craps on the bus going on the way to the Eagles game.
Right.
And, a few other things that happened along the way. It really has to be a letdown for a lot of people that a team, which especially on offense we know can do a lot better than it did, almost basically, I won't say threw in the towel, but kind of just went through the motions and ended up the way they did.
Yeah, and it starts from up top, and I'll say this again and again, William. I mean, it all starts from up top. I think, when you look at ownership, Tom Benson, he has to also not only critique what his coach is doing, he has to critique himself. Did he make the right decisions? Hazlitt has to critique himself, and the assistant coach has got to also, it's got to be a thorough critique of everybody, and it starts from the top. Coaching-wise, I saw an undisciplined football team. I saw a lot of guys who, they weren't technique sound, from the quarterback position to the linemen, defensive backs, they were not technique sound. There were a lot of dropped balls. Dante Stallworth dropped a lot of balls. Joe Horn dropped a lot of balls, crucial plays, touchdowns. And it just was a team, I thought, in the latter part of the season, they were really in disarray. And I think they really have some communication problems between the coach, Hazlitt, and his players. I think there's a lot of communication problems going on there. And, I don't know what they need. I think a coaching change is warranted. I really do think a coaching change needs to happen for this team to get back on track.
And the crazy thing is, here the season ends, and a couple of days after it does end, they end up firing Hubbard Alexander, receivers coach, Sam Clancy, the line coach,
yeah.
And that they weren't near the problem with this ball team.
Exactly. You fired Sam Clancy, and this guy's not the problem. Joe Horn spoke out some and said, hey, you fired these two guys, they're not the problem. They play such a diminished role in what they're doing, but they're not the problem.
Definitely.
Now, of course, in 2002, you also had a pretty good honor in being the television color analyst for the Bayou Bucks in their inaugural season.
Hey, they never brought me back.
And they
got rid of me, man. They said they never brought me back.
And instead, in 2003, you find out the hard way, they decided to go with Cox instead of the local station.
Right.
And once you know, when you're not in the broadcast booth, the Bucks end up winning 10 games, get into the playoffs.
Right.
But yet, and we've discussed this before, because I know you still follow our sporting community, is that, the most craziest events happen to the Bucks when the regular season ends, and they go into the playoff game, and all of a sudden Herb Tyler disappears.
Hey, man, the guy's AWOL, man. If you'd have been in the Army, you'd have been court-martialed. It was a weird and it was a wacky season because the guys, this team took off, and, with Herb Tyler at the helm, I mean, these guys were on a roll, and they did a fabulous job. The first year of their inception, like you say, I was doing the color part of it with Steve Calderell, who did play-by-play, and I thought they had something there. They had a good product. I thought Gordy Dove, Neil Swan, they did a good job of bringing a good product to Houma. And I thought the second year, because it was new and it was something for these guys to build on, I thought the second year was going to even be a bigger and better year for the Bucks. But, 10 games, I mean, that's an awesome season. These guys are rolling along, and then for a playoff game, Herb Tyler doesn't show up. So, it's just, I don't know, it was one thing after another. They had a lot of injuries they had to overcome. I tell you what, Jack has done a fine job. And Jack, if you're listening, you're my buddy. I was only posing a question to you, but I think Jack has done a fine job. He's surrounded himself with some good assistant coaches, and I think this team, he's got a lot of talent. When you look at this team, he's got two good speedy receivers, in Hurd and Sullivan Beard, and I think the thing now is just, finding a quarterback. He's got some good defensive players, that's going to be returning. So actually finding a quarterback to actually run that team, I think that's going to be the thing that, they're going to have a challenge on their hands.
And, of course, you also got to give credit. The one group with the Bayou Bucks we don't mention a lot, and they do put in a lot of work, are the assistant coaches. Coach Rankins, Coach Berg. I know you and I have known Greg Harding for a good while.
Long time.
And I'll tell you the funny story, and a lot of people don't know this. It was Troy who first introduced me in person to Greg, because Greg and I had spoken on the phone many times before, but we never met in person.
Right.
And before one of the 2002 games, I think it was their only Sunday game of 2002, I go up to my seat, and Troy was sitting a few rows behind me waiting, getting prepared for the game, and Coach Harding's talking to him, and the first thing, Troy, you said that, this is Greg Harding, and before I introduced myself, and I told him, I'm the guy that's been giving you all the videotapes.
Right.
And then he started laughing and realized who I was.
Right.
And to this day, the one game he will not let me send him is that Sunday night game at Dallas when the Saints lost in overtime 30-27 after winning 27-6 in the beginning of the fourth quarter.
Whoa, that's the one he don't want you to send.
No, he don't want that one. We got to know a little bit Franklin Thomas. He's moving on to be with the New Orleans Voodoo.
Right.
And he's a pretty good, solid guy as well. I know he'll help them out a good bit.
Exactly. Franklin Thomas, a class act. I mean, this guy really brings a lot of intensity to the football field, and he's a player-coach guy, and I'm glad that he's moving up to the Voodoo, to the Arena Football League, and I think he's going to establish himself as a good coach there, and hopefully have some big things in the future for old Frankie. So he's a good guy.
Right, and of course, folks, for those who don't know the story, and I suggested this to Troy in our first interview we did, and because every now and then you can really say something to make Troy laugh.
Right.
And I remember when I made you the suggestion, the only thing the Bayou Bucks don't do at the games is that the Bayou Bells need to do a tribute to Mid-South Wrestling.
Yeah, right.
And I think Nick Ogeron would look just like Abdullah the Butcher. It'd be really good.
That would be pretty good.
Well, I'm in trouble now, so I don't care. So Doug Berg over there at the Bayou Bucks, he's going to bail me out, so don't worry.
Yeah, he's going to get you, man.
See, I told you, folks. I knew I was going to make him laugh somehow.
He
But
does it all the time, man. All the time, buddy.
But I tell you what, when we bring up wrestling, as I call it, the golden age of wrestling, I guess we were kind of fortunate because, and I tell this story to people, and they think I'm making it up, but it's true that when I was a kid, and Mid-South Wrestling would come on Channel 26 out of New Orleans, that, of course, one of their big stars at the time was the Junkyard Dog.
Right.
And the one thing about the Dog, that was the first African-American athlete I ever rooted for.
Right.
Well, when I watched the Saints, they obviously had a good many African-American athletes on their squad.
Exactly.
He was the first individual I ever rooted for.
The Junkyard Dog.
The Junkyard Dog. And of course, I was really excited when he first won the North American title.
Right.
That was a huge deal for me, and the along the way, so many other guys we've mentioned. You mentioned one guy, of course, General Skandar Akbar.
Boy.
Throw fire at people.
You know, I tell you what, I would sit by the TV, me and my dad, and I think those matches, Mid-South, they came on Sundays, didn't they? It was a Sunday.
Actually, they did come on both days at one time. Yeah.
Right. I remember on Sundays, we would sit by the TV and we would watch wrestling, and it would be so intense in the house. And man, my dad, we'd be shoving each other. I'd give him an elbow, and he'd give me a shove, and I'd give him a push, and we're watching it, and we're so animated of what's going on in the ring, and we're just kind of shoving and pushing each other, and actually just watching what's going on. And those were the great wrestlers. That period, that era of wrestling, I think was the best. I mean, I know there's WCW and there's WWF, but man, when you're talking about the Junkyard Dog, and when you're talking about Skandar Akbar and Cowboy Bill Watts, and the guy that carried the big 2x4, I forgot his name.
Hacksaw Duggan.
Hacksaw Duggan.
Yeah.
I mean, those were the big time wrestlers, man, and I mean, we enjoyed it. And that was this guy called the Grappler?
The Grappler.
The Grappler, man. And those were big time wrestlers. So me and my dad, I will never forget those days, that era of wrestling, because that's when I enjoyed it the most, and that's when I thought it was wrestling. That was true wrestling. I think now it's so much sensationalized now, and there's so much product involved now. Those guys just fought in the ring. They left it in the ring. I think now it's almost, comic strip now with some of the scenarios and how it's played out now. But back then, that was big-time wrestling, and we enjoyed it. I remember when we met, man. We met at a gas station. You remember that?
It was the Wagapack in West Thibodeau.
In West Thibodeau, man. We met at a gas station, man, and we talked for a long time. And we've been friends ever since, man.
That's right. And of course, my personal footage of you from the USFL was when you had to play in Houston against Clarence Verdun.
Against my good friend Clarence Verdun.
Which was a very exciting game.
Exactly. Great friend of mine.
You think I'm ever going to have any luck with Vanessa?
Man, you gotta have some luck with Vanessa. I mean, you gotta. But I gotta ask you one thing, Will. Have you really been trying all out, man? Have you been doing the flowers and Have you been just sending the postcards, man? Give me a strategy. What you been doing?
Well, basically, I've been trying to be me, because if I can't be me, I don't want to be anybody.
Right.
And I like to think that's the key to getting her.
That's it.
But at the same time,
get the flowers out to it, or Will.
well, I don't want to overdo too much before anything actually gels. That's the only problem, because sometimes some girls, if you try to do too much, especially material things at one time,
Yeah, you won't get her.
they think that you're trying to commit overkill, or whatever the proper term is.
Right. That's true too.
So if not, I'll just be like Charlie Brown. I'll wait 47 years before I hit my home run.
But Will, just try it. Just try this one thing, and I think this will work. Try this.
All right. Well, listen, I appreciate you being on our birthday bash, and I tell you what, you're really one interesting guy, and hopefully on a regular basis we'll see you back in broadcasting again.
Yeah, I hope so, Will. And it was nice talking to you, man. And I tell you what, keep the good work up, because you're getting a lot of positive response. You got a great show going for you.